What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success, about earning your place in this world, has been a lie designed to keep you small? You were never meant to be normal. You were never meant to crawl through life, asking for crumbs from a world that was designed to echo your voice. You were never meant to dim the light of your assumption, just to comfort those who cannot remember their own. There is something in you, something ancient, something royal, that has grown tired of shrinking, tired of waiting, tired of begging for what was already yours in the beginning. That tiredness is not weakness. It is the birth cry of your true identity. It is the I am stirring in the tomb of self-forgetting, whispering, arise and walk in your dominion. Here's what they don't want you to know. To act like you were meant to win is not arrogance. It is accuracy. It is alignment with the truth you buried beneath years of performance, trauma, and spiritual begging. You thought life was about becoming, but I tell you now, it is about remembering. Remembering that you were sent here to speak from the mountaintop, not to weep in the valley. You were meant to command with stillness, not perform with panic. The identity of the victor is not earned. It is assumed. But who taught you to lose? Who taught you that humility meant hesitation? Who taught you that asking for permission was noble, that deferring your power was spiritual? These are lies, systems of delay you were never meant to carry. You were not born to manifest from want, but to decree from fullness. And the world that now feels against you is not your enemy. It is your echo. It reflects only the tone you speak when no one else is listening. So let us be clear. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is not what you say in moments of inspiration, but what you assume in the stillness. If you believe you were made to win, the world cannot help but organize around that belief. But if you carry the tone of the one trying to win, hoping to win, needing to win, the victory will remain a stranger to your house, because you are not inviting it. You are postponing it. There is a great reversal at the heart of spiritual law. You do not win and then feel like a winner. You feel like a winner and then the outer bows in recognition. This is the only law you cannot bypass. You cannot cheat it with effort, with noise, with desperation. The feeling is the secret, and the feeling of the one who was meant to win is quiet, complete, unshaken by delay or denial. That feeling is your only task. That state is your only responsibility. From it, all things flow. So today I speak to the one who remembers, the one beneath your name, the one behind your face, the one who has always known there was more. I do not ask you to try harder. I ask you to rise. Rise into the assumption of your divine inheritance. Rise into the knowing that no one can give you what you have not already received within. Rise into the state of the man who does not wait for evidence. He is the evidence. Act like you were meant to win, because you were, because you are, because you cannot lose unless you continue to argue for the mask you were never born to wear. You've betrayed yourself more times than you care to count. Not through violence, not through vice, but through vibration, through the subtle posture of defeat you carry in the silence. You say you believe, but your tone reveals an orphan soul still waiting for permission to rise. You say I am with your lips, and yet your breath holds the tension of one who doubts his own authority. You walk into rooms with your head bowed low, asking the world to reflect what only you were meant to command. And when it does not, you call it rejection. But it is not rejection. It is feedback. The law is always listening. You prayed like a beggar while being the author. You whispered affirmations while rehearsing doubt. You hoped life would choose you while refusing to act like you'd already been chosen. That is not spiritual discipline. It is spiritual delay. You call it humility, but it is hesitation. You call it caution, but it is contradiction. You have clothed yourself in the garments of the loser while claiming to know the law, and that split has cost you everything. You look at your past and call it truth. You look at your failures and call them prophecies. But I tell you, the only thing they ever revealed was the state you dwelled in at the time. They do not speak of who you are. They speak only of who you were being. And who you were being was a man rehearsing loss, expecting delay, negotiating with heaven as if you were its servant instead of its image. The problem is not the world. The problem is that you've mistaken memory for identity. You've mistaken your track record for your name. But the past is not a prophecy unless you agree with it. The law does not remember. The law does not punish. It only reflects. And so long as you continue to identify as the one who must try harder, heal more, or earn it, you will remain locked in the posture of postponement forever, training for a war that is already over. You have been practicing defeat in your inner speech, saying you trust while scanning the horizon for validation, asking for signs because you don't yet believe your own word. This is the fracture. This is the error. You are still living like a man on the outside of his own kingdom, waiting for a gate that only opens from within. And every time you speak of lack, even casually, you tie yourself once more to the identity you say you're leaving behind. You must see it now. You've been waiting for circumstances to call you a winner, so you could finally believe it. But belief does not follow evidence. It precedes it. You act as if not because you're deluded, but because the feeling is causative. You step into the state before the mirror changes, or the mirror has no choice but to reflect the old you. Do you not see? You are not reacting to reality. You are rehearsing it. You have been faithful, but not to the truth. You have been faithful to your unworthiness, to your delays, to your justifications. You have mastered the art of partial embodiment, speaking like a king, but moving like a beggar, declaring the law but checking your outer reality for proof. And the law, being just, responds not to your words, but to your tone. And your tone has said, I am not yet. I am not enough. I am still waiting. But today you are exposed. And exposure is not condemnation. It is initiation. Now that you see the contradiction, you must choose. Will you continue speaking truth while living lie? Will you continue trying to manifest through effort instead of assumption? Will you keep asking the world to approve what your soul already knows? Or will you rise? Will you now walk, talk, breathe, and remain as one who was meant to win? Because until you do, no law, no teacher, no technique can save you from the identity you refuse to lay down. There is no power outside of your assumption. Let this truth pierce through every false altar you've ever built. You were told that life is earned, that favor must be proven, that results require approval from something greater than you. But I tell you now, you are the greater. You are the point of origin. You are the operant power. The feeling that you dare to accept as already true, even in the face of its complete physical absence, is the womb from which your world is born. Not someday, not when the signs agree. Now, always now. Victory is not achieved. It is remembered. To act like you were meant to win is to remember that you already have. Every outcome you desire, every condition you seek to alter, every door you hope to walk through already exists in the eternal present. The only variable is your state of being, your frequency, the inner tone you carry in silence. That is the gatekeeper. That is the architect of all outcomes. This is the divine pattern hidden within Scripture. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, not because he is playing make-believe, but because he knows the invisible is more real than the visible. He does not ask the outer world for confirmation. He declares it from within and lets the outer rearrange. You were taught to believe when you see. I tell you, you will see when you believe, and not 1 second soon. Assumption is not performance. It is not enthusiasm. It is inner congruence, the complete alignment of identity, inner speech, and expectation around one sacred fact. It is already so. That alignment is what produces the echo. That is the divine pattern. And until that alignment is held, not visited, but held, the outer must remain in disarray. To live like you were meant to win is not about arrogance. It is about authority. The same authority that stilled storms, multiplied loaves, raised Lazarus. These were not miracles. They were demonstrations of law, of inner dominion over outer reflection. Every man who walked in spiritual power first walked in assumption. He was the thing before it arrived. He acted from the end, not toward it. That is the reversal you must now accept. You have imagined winning as the reward. It is not. It is the starting point. Every desire in your heart is a divine memory. It is the echo of something you've already claimed in higher realms. And the only delay in its appearance is the contradiction you carry between knowing and being. You affirm abundance but assume lack. You declare love but embody rejection. You speak freedom but still wear the chains of fear. And the law, being impersonal, being faithful, returns only what you are, not what you claim. There is no one to change but self. Not the people around you, not your circumstances, not even your behavior, only your state. The law of consciousness is not moved by toil, but by tone. You want to win? Then become the winner now, in breath, in posture, in thought, and let the world catch up to what you've dared to accept as law. Stop negotiating with conditions. Stop reasoning with time. Time is not your master. It is your servant. It obeys the inner decree. If you say it must take 6 months, then it must. If you say I'm not ready yet, then you will never be. But if you say I am now who I choose to be, and you hold that assumption in the furnace of feeling, without panic, without wavering, then nothing can stop its externalization. The law is mechanical, but your assumption is sovereign. To act like you were meant to win is to assume the position of the already crowned, not because the world approves, but because your soul remembers. The crown has always been yours. The robe has always hung within reach. But you keep dressing in the garments of delay. You keep speaking as the one waiting, even while you affirm the promise. No more. From this moment, you must become intolerant of the contradiction. Assume the end and dwell there. Walk from it. Speak from it. Imagine only from it. And if the old voice returns, you do not argue. You return quietly, calmly, completely to the state of the winner, the one who no longer chases outcomes, the one who commands them in silence, because that is the only way anything real has ever been created. Now we descend into the furnace of practice, not a practice of striving, but of stillness, not a performance for the world, but a sacred vow kept within. For the one who was meant to win does not beg the mirror to change. He becomes the reflection he desires and lets the mirror obey. If you will do what I now say, not once, not when convenient, but daily, steadily, as one who knows this is the path home, then you will see what others call impossible bend before you without force. Each morning, before the day lays its hand upon you, before memory and personality wrap themselves around you like garments, enter the silence. Not to ask, not to plead, but to assume. Sit in the throne of your being and declare inwardly, I am the one who was meant to win. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with complete inner alignment. Feel the truth of that sentence, not as something you hope for, but as something you remember. Let your breath carry the ease of one who has nothing to prove. That breath is the banner of the new state. Stand before your own reflection, not to be admired, but to be remembered. Look into your own eyes and say within, this is the face of the man who commands his world. This is the expression of the one for whom all things move into place. Then go out and move through the day as that one. You do not need to convince others. You do not need to explain your faith. The tone will do all the work. That inner command, silently spoken, will go before you and rearrange the field. Become exquisitely aware of your inner speech. The inner talk you indulge, when no one is watching, is the most creative thing you do all day. If your inner conversations still sound like desperation, explanation, justification, you are rehearsing defeat. Replace them not with empty slogans, but with language befitting a victor. Hear yourself being congratulated. Imagine others recognizing the shift in your presence, but do not fantasize as a future. Speak inwardly as if it is already happening. This is the reversal you must master. The winner is not crowned at the end. The crown is assumed at the beginning. You enter every room as if you've already been affirmed by heaven, not to impress, but to express the state, the vibration, the tone of the fulfilled man. Others will feel it. They may not understand it, but they will respond. Identify now the rituals of the loser, the ways in which you unconsciously announce delay to the world. Hesitation, apology, over-explaining, needing feedback. These are the leaky behaviors of someone unsure of his right to win. Cut them, not with shame, but with clarity. Every act, every word, every breath must now rise from the assumption of victory. You must treat your tone like it is holy, because it is. It is the only thing that creates. When the world resists you, and it will, it is not a sign that the law is failing. It is a test of your frequency. Will you react? Will you doubt? Or will you return inward and hold the state? That is the entire curriculum of the winner. Holding the end while the middle screams, remaining still while the storm performs. Do not break the posture. Do not abandon the tone. The law is faithful. If you remain, it must conform. Each night before sleep, enter once more the state of victory. Hear the praise. Feel the completion. Dwell in the inner scene where your world has already caught up to who you chose to be. This is not delusion. It is dominion. You are rehearsing the end, not as fantasy, but as fact. Sleep in that vibration. Let your subconscious receive that tone, and it will do the work. This is your life now, walking as one who has already won. No matter the outer picture, no matter the delay, no matter the appearance, you act like the one who was meant to win because that is who you are. And every moment you hold that identity, the world is being silently bent into shape. You are not chasing, you are being. And being is the seed of every miracle. So when the doubt comes, and it will, you do not explain, you do not confess, you return. Return to the tone, return to the breath, return to the sentence. I am the one who was meant to win. And you walk on. You have moved through life as though your success were still under negotiation, your worth still pending a verdict. But I tell you, there is no jury. There is no trial. There is only the word. And the word was always in your mouth. I am. That is the final and only law. This is your rebirth, and it will not announce itself with thunder. It will arrive as stillness, a certainty that needs no signature, a breath that no longer rushes, a posture that no longer bends to be accepted. You will speak less, you will smile more, you will move as if life has already cleared the path before you, because it has, because you cleared it the moment you assumed the one who was meant to win. So stand now, not in defiance, but in memory of the throne you once left and the crown you now reclaim. You are the one reality follows. If this stirred something inside you, it was meant for you, not by accident, not by chance, but by alignment. The words were not information, they were confirmation. That quiet thrum beneath your ribs, that breath you didn't realize you were holding, that stillness where the mind finally went silent, that was the signal. The veil just lifted, and now you must choose what to do with what you remember.
There are moments in life when everything seems to stand still, when the promises you've held in your heart feel delayed and every door appears closed. But what if I told you that in those silent stretches of time, everything is still working out, perfectly, precisely, divinely, in your favor? You see, what we call delay is often divine choreography. Life is not punishing you, it is positioning you. Every seeming setback, every unanswered prayer is not rejection, it is redirection. The unseen hand of God is arranging circumstances, moving people, and aligning opportunities in a way that your physical eyes cannot yet perceive. Trust the silence, trust the stillness, trust the timing. When you learn to rest in faith, you stop wrestling with when and start dwelling in it is done. You no longer beg the universe to move. You realize it already has. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the instant you dare to believe, something shifted in the unseen realm. Time itself began to conspire for your favor. You may not see it yet, but beneath the surface, roots are forming. The dream you planted in faith is alive. Every challenge, every delay, every disappointment is nourishing that seed. The soil of patience is where miracles grow. There will come a day, and it may not look like today, when everything will suddenly make sense. The closed doors will reveal their protection. The lost opportunities will unveil their purpose. And you'll see that what looked like waiting was actually preparation. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are right on schedule with divine timing. So hold the vision even when you see nothing. Speak the promise even when the evidence says otherwise. Stay faithful in the unseen, because what you have imagined in faith is already finding its way into form. Every delay has a divine reason, and every season has its appointed time. What belongs to you cannot be lost. What's meant for you will not pass you by. Don't give up before the breakthrough. The moment you're tempted to quit is often the moment just before everything shifts in your favor. Breathe, believe, and be still. For everything, yes, everything is working out in your favor. Trust God's timing. What we often perceive as delay is not a denial, but a divine orchestration moving in silence. The human mind, impatient by nature, measures progress by visible results, by the ticking of clocks and the movement of calendars. Yet, the divine realm operates beyond human time. It unfolds through alignment, preparation, and unseen coordination. What seems like nothing is happening is often the very moment when everything is being arranged with precision. When life slows down, when doors refuse to open, it is easy to think something has gone wrong. But delay is not disorder, it is order in disguise. The universe is never late, it is exact. Every event, every meeting, every outcome unfolds according to a rhythm that surpasses logic. You are not being punished by delay, you are being protected by it. For if the thing you longed for arrived before you were ready, or before it was ready for you, what was meant to bless you could burden you instead. Divine timing ensures that both you and your desire mature at the same pace. There are invisible threads connecting your destiny to countless other lives, situations, and choices. While you wait, those threads are being woven together. The right people are being prepared. The right opportunities are forming. The right path is being cleared. You cannot see the pattern while it is being stitched, but when the tapestry of your life is revealed, you will understand why every pause had purpose. Sometimes delay is God's way of deepening your faith, stripping you of impatience, fear, and doubt, so that when your promise arrives, you receive it with strength, gratitude, and humility. The waiting season is secret. It refines the heart and clarifies intention. It teaches you to depend not on external progress, but on inner assurance. When you learn to rest in the knowing that everything is unfolding perfectly, you align with divine intelligence itself. You stop forcing, you stop fighting, and you start allowing. The truth is, delay is never wasted time. It is divine preparation disguised as stillness. The same way a seed is buried before it breaks through the soil, Your manifestation hides beneath the surface, gathering strength. You do not dig up the soil to check if the seed is growing. You water it in faith, trusting that nature is doing her perfect work beneath the surface. So it is with your desires. What you have prayed for, imagined, and believed is germinating in the unseen. The divine order behind delays is not chaos, it is choreography. Every second of waiting is a step in a larger dance of timing and grace. And when the appointed hour comes, not a moment sooner, not a moment later, everything that once seemed withheld will appear suddenly, effortlessly, beautifully. Then you will realize that the delay was never against you, it was always for you. The path was being cleared, the timing perfected, and you were being prepared for the blessing that was already yours. Time, as we perceive it, is not as rigid as it appears. It bends and rearranges itself around the state of your consciousness. Every inner assumption, every feeling you consistently hold, quietly molds the events that unfold in your external world. What we call waiting is not about minutes and hours passing, it is about alignment. The moment your inner belief becomes one with your desire, time ceases to be an obstacle. The universe begins to reorganize itself to make what you have accepted within you a living reality. Your outer life is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the inner world you sustain. When you doubt, time delays. When you believe, time accelerates. You may think life is happening to you, but it is happening through you, responding faithfully to the vibration of your inner state. This is why two people can face the same situation and experience completely different outcomes. It is not the situation that determines the result, but the state of consciousness they occupy within it. When you assume the feeling of already having what you desire, you invite it into the present moment. In that instance, something powerful shifts in the unseen realm. The laws of time begin to bend to your conviction. Circumstances rearrange, opportunities appear, and people begin to move in patterns that lead you directly to the fulfillment of your inner assumption. It is not that you are forcing life to change, it is that your belief has changed, and therefore life must follow. You see, time only appears to move forward when we are disconnected from our desires. But in truth, all possibilities already exist. When you enter into the state of your fulfilled desire, when you feel it real and accept it as done, you align yourself with the version of reality where that desire is already accomplished. The world outside simply takes time to catch up to your inner knowing. What feels like waiting is just the unfolding of what has already been set in motion by your faith. It is not effort or struggle that bends time, it is certainty. When you know that what you desire is already yours, you release resistance, and in that release, divine speed takes over. Time compresses. Events that would have taken years can unfold in days because you have entered into harmony with the frequency of your fulfilled state. You are no longer chasing your desire, you are magnetizing it. So if you find yourself waiting, do not fight the clock. Instead, shift your state. Close your eyes and feel the joy of already being the person who has what they seek. Let that feeling become so real, so natural, that it replaces every trace of doubt. When your inner belief and your outer desire are one, time itself becomes your servant. It bends, accelerates, and rearranges to bring you the proof of what you already know is true within. Reality always follows the conviction of your spirit. Faith is not blind optimism or wishful thinking. It is spiritual vision. It is the inner knowing that what you have imagined, hoped for, and believed in already exists, even when the outer world shows no evidence of it. True faith is not waiting to see before believing. It is believing so deeply that seeing becomes inevitable. It is resting in the invisible, knowing that the unseen realm is already at work on your behalf. The visible world is only a shadow cast by the unseen. Everything that ever appeared began first as an invisible idea, a silent conviction, a seed of imagination, nurtured in the soil of faith. When you trust in that unseen realm, you align with the creative power that governs all existence. The moment you accept something as true within, it begins to take form without. The universe, in perfect obedience, mirrors the condition of your belief. But faith often demands surrender, a release of control, a quiet acceptance that you do not need to know how or when. The human mind seeks evidence, logic, and sequence, but faith speaks a different language. It whispers, "It is done," even when everything visible screams the opposite. This inner rest, this stillness amid uncertainty, is the highest form of power. For when you no longer depend on external proof, you become proof yourself, the embodiment of divine trust. The unseen world is always moving in your favor, arranging the pieces you cannot yet see. The delays, the detours, the disappointments are not signs of failure, they are signs of divine movement. Faith teaches you to interpret silence not as absence, but as activity. Just as a seed buried in darkness is not dead but growing, your prayer, your vision, your dream is germinating beneath the surface. You may not hear it, but the roots are forming. You may not see it, but the shape of your answer is taking form. To live by faith is to walk by inner conviction rather than outer condition. You no longer ask life to show you results before you believe. You become the evidence of what you believe. You hold the feeling of your answered prayer until the world has no choice but to reflect it. The invisible must become visible. When you refuse to let go of your assumption of fulfillment, faith is rest, not resignation, but divine assurance. It is the quiet confidence that everything needed is already in motion, even if you cannot trace its path. When you live from that place, anxiety loses its grip and doubt dissolves. The unseen becomes more real to you than the seen. And soon the invisible forces that have been moving on your behalf reveal their work in perfect timing. So trust what cannot be seen. Rest in the unseen reality. For the moment you believe it exists, it begins to move toward you. The invisible is not far away. It is within you, waiting to unfold through the power of your unwavering faith. There is a sacred rhythm to life, a divine order that governs every unfolding event. Nothing arrives too early, and nothing is withheld too long. Yet the human heart, in its longing and impatience, often wrestles with time, always asking, when will it happen? When will my dream come to pass? But divine timing is not bound by your clock. It operates through alignment, not anxiety. When you release your anxious grasp on when, you open the way for the perfect how to be revealed. Anxious waiting creates resistance. It tells the universe that you do not yet trust the process. It focuses on lack, on absence, on the feeling that something is missing. But divine timing flows through surrender, through the quiet confidence that everything you desire is already on its way, unfolding at the exact pace needed for your highest good. When you let go of the question of when, you move into harmony with divine intelligence. You stop pushing against life and begin flowing with it. Every manifestation is a meeting between readiness and right timing. Sometimes the delay is not about the dream, but about your development. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, withholds certain outcomes until you have become the person capable of carrying them. The waiting period refines you, strengthens your faith, and deepens your understanding. What feels like stagnation is often sacred preparation. You are being expanded to hold the blessing that is coming. When you release your need to control the timing, you make space for miracles. The perfect sequence of events begins to unfold effortlessly. People appear, opportunities align, and paths open that logic could never have planned. Divine timing does not operate through struggle. It operates through synchronicity. It is the gentle orchestration of countless moving parts converging in one perfect moment. And that moment always comes right on time. Trust that what is meant for you is already on its way, guided by a hand far wiser than your own. You do not have to chase it or force it into being. You only need to remain faithful to the vision, grateful in the waiting and peaceful in the process. Every unanswered question, every seeming delay carries hidden wisdom. Life is not withholding your desire. It is aligning you with it in the most graceful way possible. There comes a day when you will look back and see how every delay served you. You will understand that what you call waiting was actually divine choreography, arranging the details for a perfect arrival. The timing you once questioned will reveal itself as flawless. And so be still, breathe, release your grasp on when, and rest in the knowing that divine timing has never failed. The perfect how is already unfolding in ways beyond your imagination. What belongs to you will arrive effortlessly in the moment you are ready to receive it, and not a second before, nor a second too late. Stillness is often misunderstood as doing nothing, as idleness or passivity. But true stillness is not the absence of action, it is the presence of alignment. It is the sacred posture of one who trusts the higher intelligence that governs all life. In stillness, you cease the restless striving of the mind and allow divine order to take the lead. You stop forcing outcomes and start cooperating with the unseen rhythm that already knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it perfectly. In the world of noise, movement, and urgency, stillness feels unnatural. We are taught that progress comes only through effort and activity, yet the greatest transformations often happen in silence, in the quiet spaces where your spirit becomes attuned to divine wisdom. When you are still, you step out of the turbulence of worry and into the flow of faith. You release the need to control every detail and rest in the knowing that everything is being handled by an intelligence far greater than your conscious mind. Stillness is divine cooperation. It is saying, I trust the process even when I can't see it. It is the silent act of faith that creates the perfect environment for miracles to unfold. In that sacred pause, the noise of fear quiets, the confusion clears, and the truth begins to speak. The higher order, that invisible intelligence moving through all creation, can only guide you when your inner world becomes still enough to hear it. Imagine a lake on a windy day. The waves are restless, the surface distorted, and the reflection unclear. But when the wind settles and the water becomes calm, the lake perfectly mirrors the sky. So it is with you. When your mind is agitated, you cannot see divine guidance clearly. But when you become still, your soul reflects heaven's wisdom. Answers rise effortlessly. Direction appears naturally. The next step reveals itself without struggle. Stillness does not mean passivity, it means inspired action. Action born not from panic or pressure, but from peace. When you act from stillness, every movement carries power, precision, and grace. You stop reacting to circumstances and start creating from a place of calm authority. This is how the invisible becomes visible, not through frantic effort, but through quiet alignment. The power of stillness lies in its ability to connect you with what already knows. The higher order that breathes the stars into existence also guides your steps. It does not need your worry to work. It needs your willingness to be still. So pause, breathe, let the noise within you settle. Trust that while you rest in stillness, the unseen world is moving with perfect accuracy on your behalf. In the silence, creation is speaking. In the calm, the path is clearing. Stillness is not inactivity. It is sacred cooperation with divine ardor, where your soul and the universe move as one. There is a moment in every journey when the promise seems silent, when all your effort feels unrewarded, and the vision you've held begins to fade under the weight of delay. This is the most dangerous moment, the season of gestation, where many give up, not realizing that the breakthrough is forming just beneath the surface. Like a seed buried in the dark, your manifestation is alive, growing, and reaching upward even when you cannot see a single sign of movement. Every dream requires a hidden season. Just as nature takes time to mature a seed before it breaks through the soil, life takes time to prepare your desire for full expression. The waiting season is not punishment, it is process. It is where strength, patience, and faith are built. What looks like stillness is actually sacred activity, roots spreading, foundations forming, timing aligning. But because the work is invisible, it is easy to assume nothing is happening and give up too soon. The universe is faithful to those who persist beyond appearances. The soil of delay is never empty. It holds the unseen promise of everything you have imagined in faith. Yet, impatience blinds us to this truth. When we look for quick evidence and find none, we begin to doubt. But remember, the darker the soil, the deeper the growth. The silence you fear is often the very space where the miracle is being arranged. Think of the farmer who plants a seed. He doesn't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. He trusts the process. He waters, waits, and believes that nature will do her perfect work. So too must you trust the invisible. Your job is not to force the bloom, but to nurture your faith until it appears. Every time you choose belief over fear, every time you give thanks instead of giving up, you are watering your dream. Many quit just before their harvest. They walk away at the threshold, unaware that one more moment of faith would have opened the floodgates of manifestation. But the universe rewards the spirit that endures. The moment you refuse to surrender to doubt, the energy of persistence sends a powerful signal, a declaration that you are ready to receive. So when nothing seems to be happening, stay the course. When the night feels endless, keep believing. The gestation season is not the end. It is the sacred pause before creation becomes visible. You may not see the flower yet, but life within the seed is unstoppable. Do not abandon your dream in the silence. Do not lose heart when your prayer echoes back unanswered. Something magnificent is forming in the unseen, the perfect bloom of what you have believed for. Stay faithful a little longer. The soil will break, the light will appear, And when it does, you will understand why waiting was never wasted. It was preparation for the beauty that was always destined to bloom. Everything in your life, every pause, every delay, every unseen moment is part of a divine orchestration working perfectly in your favor. What appears as stillness is not stagnation, it is sacred movement in the unseen. When you choose faith over fear, trust over timing, and stillness over struggle, you align yourself with the rhythm of divine order. Life is not against you, it is unfolding for you in ways far beyond your understanding. So do not give up. The dream you've carried in your heart is alive, even if you cannot yet see it. Trust that every step, every silence, every closed door is leading you closer to your appointed moment. Your breakthrough is not lost. It's simply aligning with perfect timing. Hold your faith. Keep believing. Everything is working out exactly as it should. Beautifully, divinely, and right on time. Thank you for watching, and remember, trust God's timing, because what's meant for you will never pass you by.
My dear friend, you're thinking too small. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your goals are. I don't care how ambitious you think you're being. You are thinking too small. And that small thinking, that careful, realistic, socially acceptable level of ambition, is the very thing that's keeping you trapped. Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. The size of your thinking determines the size of your results. Not your effort, not your talent, not your circumstances, your thinking. And right now, in this very moment, you are operating at a fraction of your actual capacity. Because you've been conditioned to think small. You've been taught to be realistic. You've been told to stay in your lane. You've been trained to set achievable goals. And in doing so, you've murdered your potential before it ever had a chance to breathe. Tonight I want to speak to you about something that most students of this law never grasp, the principle of exponential assumption. Or as I'll call it tonight, thinking 10 times bigger than you've ever dared to think before. Here's what happens when you think small. You assume a desire that feels comfortable. Something that stretches you just a little bit, but not so much that it frightens you. You say to yourself, I will make an extra $1,000 this month. I will improve my circumstances slightly. I will have a little bit more. And you know what? You might actually manifest it. You'll achieve that small assumption. You'll feel a momentary sense of accomplishment. And then what? You'll assume another small thing, and another, and another. And 10 years from now, you'll look back and realize you spent an entire decade making tiny assumptions when you could have been claiming entire kingdoms. Small assumptions do not inspire you. They do not pull the creative power from the depths of your being. They do not make you willing to persist, to dwell faithfully, to live from an end that seems impossible. Small assumptions are safe, and safety is the graveyard of greatness. But 10 times bigger thinking, 10 times bigger assuming. That's different. When you assume 10 times bigger, you don't just change what you're claiming. You change your entire concept of self. You change who you know yourself to be, how you move through the world, how you make decisions, what you're willing to accept as true. Because a 10 times bigger assumption doesn't allow you to remain who you are. It demands that you become someone completely different. Let me give you a truth that most students never understand. A 10 times bigger assumption is not 10 times harder to claim than a normal assumption. In fact, in many ways, it's easier. Here's why. When you make a small assumption, like I will have 10% more money, you're assuming in the same crowded consciousness as everyone else. You're using the same mental patterns. You're dwelling in the same limited states. You're competing in the realm of scarcity. But when you make a 10 times bigger assumption, like I am the kind of person who commands 10 times more wealth, you can't use the same mental patterns. The old consciousness doesn't work. The conventional dwelling won't get you there. So you're forced to think from an entirely different state. You're forced to claim an identity so bold that your current self-concept cannot contain it. You're forced to find a consciousness that others aren't even looking for. And in that space, in that realm of exponential assumption, there's almost no resistance. Because 99% of people won't even attempt it. They'll look at a 10 times bigger assumption and say, that's impossible. That's not for me. That's unrealistic. And then they'll go back to their small, safe, crowded assumptions. But the 1% who dare to assume 10 times bigger, they're operating in a completely different dimension of consciousness. They're not competing with anyone. They're creating from a state most never touch. Look at anyone in scripture or history who achieved something extraordinary. And you'll find someone who assumed 10 times bigger than everyone around them. Abraham didn't assume he'd have one child. God told him his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. An impossible assumption. But Abraham believed God. He assumed it was already done, and it was accounted to him as righteousness. Moses didn't assume he'd free a few slaves. He assumed an entire nation would walk out of bondage through a parted sea. People thought he was mad, but he assumed from the end of it being finished and the Red Sea opened. David didn't assume he'd win a fair fight with Goliath. He assumed he'd kill a giant with a stone, while the armies of Israel watched. Everyone told him he was too small, too young, too weak. But he assumed the victory before the battle, and Goliath fell. Solomon didn't assume he'd build a modest temple. He assumed he'd build a temple so magnificent that the entire world would come to see the glory of God within it. And he did. Do you see the pattern? Every person who left a mark on consciousness started by assuming at a level that made other people uncomfortable. They didn't ask what's realistic. They asked, what does God, my own wonderful human imagination, have the power to do? And that question changed everything. Here's what happens in your consciousness when you start assuming 10 times bigger. First, you feel resistance. Massive, overwhelming resistance. Because a bigger assumption exposes the gap between who you're currently assuming yourself to be and who you must become to sustain this new assumption. It shows you that your current mental diet won't support it. Your current self-concept won't contain it. Your current dwelling won't maintain it. And that's frightening. But here's the beautiful part. That resistance is proof you're claiming something worthy of you. Because small assumptions don't challenge you. They don't demand a shift in consciousness. They don't require you to die to your old concept of self and be reborn into a new one. But a 10 times bigger assumption, it demands complete transformation. It says you cannot manifest this as the person you're currently assuming yourself to be. You must become someone else entirely in consciousness. And when you accept that, when you embrace that necessity for complete transformation, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to improve your old self-concept and start claiming an entirely new one. You stop asking, how can I get a little better? And start asking, who am I in consciousness if this desire is already fulfilled? That's the shift. That's the moment everything changes. When you assume 10 times bigger, the effects ripple through every area of your life. Your daily mental diet changes. You stop feeding your mind thoughts that don't support your assumption. You stop dwelling in states of lack or limitation. You stop engaging in inner conversations that contradict what you're claiming, because you can't afford to. The gap between who you were and who you're assuming yourself to be is too vast to waste a single thought. Your inner circle changes. You stop surrounding yourself with people who think from lack. You stop seeking approval from those who dwell in limitation. You start gravitating toward those who think from the end, who assume boldly, who see fulfillment instead of obstacles. Your standard of acceptance changes. You stop accepting mediocre assumptions. You stop settling for good enough in consciousness. You stop making excuses for why you can't assume bigger. Because when you're claiming a 10 times bigger identity, average consciousness is not an option. Average won't maintain your assumption. Your entire energy changes. You wake up different. You move through the world different. You speak different. Because you're not just assuming a desire anymore, you're inhabiting a completely new state of consciousness. You're being someone who matters in consciousness. And that energy, that 10 times bigger consciousness, is magnetic. It attracts corresponding events. It attracts resources. It attracts people who recognize that you're dwelling in a state they want to touch. Now let me tell you something that nobody wants to hear. Most people will never assume 10 times bigger. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Because assuming 10 times bigger requires you to be comfortable with the unknown. It requires you to appear foolish to those who think small. It requires you to dwell in a state so far from your current circumstances that everyone will question your sanity. Most people would rather assume a small desire and feel safe than claim a massive identity and risk looking delusional. They would rather be realistic and respected than bold and ridiculed. They would rather blend into the consciousness of the masses than stand alone in a state of greatness. And that's fine. That's their choice. But if you're still listening, if something in you is stirring, if there's a part of you that knows you were meant to assume more, to claim more, to be more in consciousness, then you're not most people. You're someone who's ready to step into exponential assumption. So here's what you're going to do right now. Tonight, you're going to take whatever desire you've been assuming and multiply it by 10. If you wanted an extra $10,000 this year, your new assumption is 100,000. If you wanted to improve your body slightly, your new assumption is complete transformation. If you wanted a small change in your circumstances, your new assumption is total revolution. I don't care if it seems impossible. In fact, it should seem impossible. Because if your assumption doesn't challenge your current self-concept, it's not big enough to transform you. Write it down. Make it specific. Make it so audacious that you feel uncomfortable, even claiming it in consciousness. And then ask yourself this question. Not how do I do this, but rather who am I in consciousness if this is already mine? Not how, who. Because the person you're currently assuming yourself to be cannot manifest a 10 times bigger desire. The mental habits you have won't maintain it. The consciousness you currently dwell in won't contain it. The self-concept you've built won't support it. So you need to assume a completely new identity. You need to think from a different state entirely, not trying to get there, but assuming you're already there, not hoping to become that person, but claiming you already are that person. Here's where the real power enters. When you commit to a 10 times bigger assumption, when you write it down, when you read it every single day, when you feel it as already true, when you speak from the consciousness of already being it, your subconscious mind begins to accept it as present reality, not future reality, present reality. And when your deeper mind believes something is real now, it goes to work manifesting the corresponding conditions. It begins to notice opportunities you would have missed before. It begins creating connections you wouldn't have made. It begins solving problems in ways you couldn't have conceived. Why? Because your subconscious mind, your father, the creative power within you, doesn't know the difference between what you vividly assume and what you physically experience. So if you impress it with a 10 times bigger vision, if you dwell in that state with clarity, with feeling, with persistence, it will begin to manifest that vision in your outer world. This is not mystical thinking. This is law. This is how consciousness operates. But this only works if you assume big enough. A small assumption doesn't impress the subconscious with enough power. It doesn't create enough of a shift. It doesn't demand enough transformation. But a 10 times bigger assumption, it hijacks your entire consciousness and points it in one direction, the direction of your boldly claimed identity. So from this moment forward, you are not someone who assumes small. You are not someone who plays it safe in consciousness. You are not someone who claims only what seems realistic. You are someone who assumes 10 times bigger than you ever have before. You are someone who makes others uncomfortable with your bold assumptions. You are someone who dwells in states that others call impossible. Let me leave you with this. You have one life, one opportunity to discover what consciousness can do through you, one chance to see what you're truly capable of assuming into being. And you can spend it making small assumptions, claiming safe identities, staying comfortable in consciousness. Or you can assume 10 times bigger and discover what you're actually made of. The world doesn't need another person who thinks small. The world needs people who dare to assume impossibly big. People who claim identities that make others say that's insane. People who refuse to accept the limitations of their current self-concept. People who build empires in consciousness before a single brick is laid in the physical. People who create movements in imagination before anyone else even knows what's happening. People who transform entire realities instead of just tweaking their current circumstances. That person can be you. That person is you if you choose to assume it. So choose it now. Take your desire, multiply it by 10, write it down, and then do something that separates you from everyone else. Assume it's already yours in consciousness. Dwell in the state of already being that person. Live from the end of it being finished. Because when you assume 10 times bigger, when you truly commit to that level of consciousness, when you persist in that bold claim despite all evidence to the contrary, the outer world has no choice but to conform. Doors open, people appear, resources materialize, not because you got lucky, but because you assumed big enough to deserve them, not because circumstances changed, but because you changed in consciousness, not because the world gave you permission, but because you claimed your desire as already done. Tonight before you sleep, you're going to assume your 10 times bigger identity for the first time. Close your eyes. Forget your current circumstances entirely. Forget what seems possible based on where you are now. And assume, with complete conviction, that you already are the person who has this 10 times bigger desire. Feel it. Not the desire, but the identity. Not what you want, but who you are. If your desire is 10 times more wealth, feel yourself to be the kind of person who naturally commands that wealth. Not hoping for it, not working toward it, being it. If your desire is complete transformation, feel yourself to be already transformed. Not becoming, already. Dwell in that state as you fall asleep. Let that be the last impression on your subconscious mind. That bold, 10 times bigger assumption of who you are. And tomorrow when you wake as that person. Think from that state. Speak from that consciousness. Move through the world from that identity. Not trying to get there, already there. Not hoping to become, already being. This is the secret of exponential assumption. This is the power of thinking 10 times bigger. This is how you collapse years of small progress into moments of transformation. Your 10 times bigger life is not waiting somewhere in the future. It exists right now in consciousness. It's a state you can assume this very moment. But it won't come to you as the person you currently think yourself to be. You have to die to your small self-concept and be reborn into your 10 times bigger identity. You have to stop assuming from where you are and start assuming from where you desire to be. You have to think not 10% bigger, but 10 times bigger. And when you do, when you truly commit to that level of assumption, when you persist in that bold claim, when you refuse to let your current circumstances dictate your consciousness, everything changes. Not gradually, not eventually, instantly in consciousness, and then inevitably in manifestation. So go now. Your 10 times bigger identity is waiting. But you must claim it. You must assume it. You must become it in consciousness first. Think 10 times bigger, starting tonight. The size of your assumption determines the size of your manifestation. Stop claiming small identities and safe desires. Assume 10 times bigger than you ever have before. Not in the future, but in consciousness right now. Be the person who already has it. Your 10 times bigger life begins the moment you dare to assume it. Thank you and good evening. As always, thank you for being here. This is Best of Lectures, and I will see you in the next video.
There are moments in life when everything seems quiet, too quiet. You've prayed, you've believed, you've waited, and still nothing appears to move. But let me tell you, this silence is not the absence of God. It is the sound of divine construction. Behind what your eyes cannot see, heaven is arranging something far greater than what you've asked for. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour has been part of a higher orchestration. You were not being denied, you were being prepared. There's a reason this message has reached you right now. Because your season is shifting. You are standing at the edge of a divine turning point. Do not be fooled by appearances. The visible world is the slowest form of manifestation. Everything begins within. in the unseen realm of imagination and faith. When you close your eyes and feel the reality of your desire, you are touching the substance of what is to come. The invisible responds to your conviction. It listens not to your words, but to your inner knowing, right now, as you hold on. Even with trembling faith, something is being aligned for your favor. The very thing that looked lost is being restored in a higher form. The people who walked away were never meant to carry the weight of your blessing. The doors that closed were not rejection. They were divine redirection toward the promise meant for you. God has not forgotten you. In fact, you are closer than you think. When the night feels longest, the dawn is already forming. That heaviness in your spirit is not defeat. It's the birth pangs of destiny. The old chapter is ending because a new one is written and waiting for you to enter it. You don't have to strive anymore. You simply have to align, to rest in the knowing that what is yours cannot be taken, delayed, or destroyed. The universe bends to the faith of one who dares to believe, even when all evidence says otherwise. So lift your eyes again, feel the shift inside your heart, speak the promise as though it has already come to pass, give thanks for what you cannot yet touch, for gratitude is the proof of faith. If you're seeing this right now, it is not coincidence, it's confirmation. You are being called to hold your faith firm just a little longer. The breakthrough you've been praying for is already in motion. God is about to do something big, something that will make sense of every tear, every waiting season, and every silent night. Don't give up. You are not at the end, you are standing on the threshold of divine fulfillment. Stay still, stay believing, and watch what happens next. When weariness sets in, when the soul feels heavy and the road ahead looks endless, it's easy to believe that something has gone wrong, that maybe your prayers have lost their power or your vision has run dry. But that deep exhaustion you're feeling is not a sign of defeat. It's often the quiet whisper of transformation. It is the soul's way of telling you that a major shift is near. The weariness that comes before breakthrough is not the fatigue of failure. It's the labor before birth. Every time you grow tired of waiting, something within you is expanding. You are outgrowing the old patterns, the old limitations, and even the old version of yourself that once felt safe. The discomfort is not punishment, it's preparation. When the seed pushes against the soil, it must break through the darkness before it sees the light. So when your spirit feels pressed, when your patience feels stretched thin, it is only because you are being ushered into a new dimension of being. God allows this inner tension not to destroy you, but to awaken you. You cannot enter the next level with the same mindset that belonged to the old season. So the weariness comes to strip away false identities, to remove dependency on appearances, and to remind you that strength is born in surrender. When everything in you wants to quit, that is the sacred moment when the old is dissolving and the new is forming. The unseen is rearranging itself to match the vision you've been holding. Sometimes your spirit grows tired, not because you're weak, but because you've carried the unseen weight of transition. You've been believing for something that has not yet materialized, and that invisible work can be exhausting. But know this, every tear, every silent prayer, every night of doubt has been building the inner foundation for your new reality. The moment you feel you can't go on is often the very moment the shift begins. That inner fatigue is your signpost, heaven's quiet signal that the old cycle is complete. Instead of resisting the weariness, honor it. Rest in the knowing that something is breaking open for your good. The mind may say nothing is happening, but the spirit knows better. The stillness you feel is not emptiness, it's divine movement in disguise. You are being reshaped from within. The vision you've held is taking form in the unseen, and soon the outer world will catch up to the inner transformation that's already complete. So if you feel tired, don't curse the process. Let it be a sign that you are closer than ever to manifestation. The fatigue is proof that you have stayed the course, that you have believed through silence and delay something great is near, not because of what you see, but because of what you've become. The weariness is not your end, it is the trembling before the dawn. The shift you've been praying for is already unfolding within you, preparing to appear without. Everything that exists in your outer world first began as an unseen image in someone's inner world. Imagination is not a mere daydream. It is the womb of reality, the silent workshop of creation where all miracles are conceived. Every structure, every breakthrough, every answered prayer is born from the invisible realm of thought and feeling. What you consistently see and feel within becomes the law that governs what unfolds around you. The mistake many make is believing that reality is fixed, that what the eye sees is all there is. But the truth is far deeper. The outer world is a mirror, faithfully reflecting the dominant images and emotions held within the mind. When you imagine with conviction, not as wishful thinking, but as a felt reality, you impress that vision upon the unseen substance from which all form arises. The universe has no choice but to rearrange itself to match the picture you hold in faith. Think of your imagination as divine soil. Whatever seed of thought you plant within it will grow, whether it be faith or fear, abundance or lack, healing or despair. The soil does not discriminate. It simply produces according to what is sown. So the question becomes, what are you planting? Are you rehearsing doubt, or are you envisioning the fulfillment of your desire with gratitude and certainty? Every mental picture, repeated with emotion, becomes a command to creation itself. When you live from your imagination rather than your senses, you begin to transcend circumstance. You are no longer limited by what is visible because you understand that the visible is temporary, but the unseen is eternal. The moment you feel the joy of having what you desire, even before it appears, you call that reality into being. Feeling is the language of creation. The stronger your inner conviction, the faster the outer world bends to reflect it. Miracles are not interruptions of natural law. They are expressions of higher law, the law of faith, which says, as within, so without. When your inner vision becomes unwavering, your world cannot help but conform. Even the impossible becomes possible, because imagination bridges the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. You don't have to force it or chase it. You simply become it in consciousness, and the outer will follow. So close your eyes for a moment. See yourself already standing in the life you desire. Feel it, not as hope, but as certainty. Walk through it in your mind until it feels more real than your present surroundings, that inner scene. When felt with deep conviction, becomes your unseen command to creation. In time, reality will mirror what you have seen within yourself all along. Imagination is the seed of every miracle. Plant it with faith, water it with feeling, and watch your world transform into the reflection of your inner belief. There are seasons in life when it seems as though heaven has gone silent. when your prayers echo back to you and every door you knock on remains closed. It is in these moments that doubt creeps in, whispering that maybe you were forgotten, or perhaps what you hoped for wasn't meant to be. But in truth, what looks like delay is never denial. It is divine preparation. The unseen hand of God is arranging every detail, aligning every element, and shaping you into the person capable of carrying what you've asked for. Delay is not wasted time, it is sacred timing. You are being refined in the waiting, stretched in patience, deepened in faith, and strengthened in character. The dream that comes too soon can crush the one who isn't ready for its weight. So God, in infinite wisdom, holds certain blessings back until your heart and circumstances can sustain them. He is not punishing you with delay. He is protecting you with preparation. When nothing seems to be happening, much is happening beneath the surface. Just as a seed takes root in darkness before breaking through the soil, your answered prayer is developing in the unseen realm. The roots of your faith are growing deep, so that when your miracle appears, it will stand firm. You cannot rush divine timing because it is not about the clock. It's about alignment. God's plan unfolds in patterns, not panic. Every moment of waiting has meaning, even when it doesn't make sense. Often, the delay reveals what still needs to be released, the old fears, limiting beliefs, and attachments that cannot enter the next season with you. The waiting tests the authenticity of your desire and purifies your motives. If you can remain faithful in the quiet, you prove that your faith is rooted not in outcomes, but in trust. That is the posture that invites miracles. Unwavering belief in the unseen goodness of God, even when all evidence says otherwise. Even when everything says otherwise, you are not being punished by the wait, you are being positioned by it. Every delay carries divine intelligence. The right people are being prepared, the right opportunities are being shaped, and the right timing is being perfected. When it finally comes together, you will realize that nothing was random. Every pause had purpose. The delay was the bridge that carried you from desire to fulfillment. So rest in the knowing that divine timing is flawless. You are not late. You are right on schedule, according to heaven's rhythm. Keep your vision alive in the waiting, not by striving, but by trusting. The manifestation is already in motion, even if your senses cannot perceive it yet. What feels like stillness is actually movement on a higher plane. The pattern of delay is not withholding. It is the divine choreography that ensures your miracle arrives complete, mature, and perfectly timed. Faith is not hope dressed in polite words. It is a quiet certainty that what you have believed is already accomplished, even when every visible sign says otherwise. It is the unwavering conviction that the unseen is more real than the seen, that the promise is fulfilled the moment it is accepted within. True faith does not beg, it rests. It does not strain for proof, it knows. It is not a desperate reaching, but a serene awareness that the thing desired is already yours in the invisible realm. To walk by faith is to live from the end, to occupy the state of your fulfilled desire as though it were already fact. This is the great secret of manifestation, to feel now what you wish to experience later. The world may tell you to wait and see, but faith reverses that law and declares, see, and you will wait no longer. Faith moves first, evidence follows. When you truly believe, you stop searching for signs, because belief itself is the sign. The inner conviction is the proof of things not seen. There is a power in quiet confidence, a strength in still assurance. Faith doesn't fight against appearances, it transcends them. It does not deny what the senses perceive, but knows that what is seen is temporary, while what is unseen is eternal. The circumstances around you may contradict your vision, but faith sees beyond contradiction. It holds the outcome so firmly within that the outer world must eventually conform to it. When you rest in faith, you shift from effort to embodiment. You stop trying to make things happen and begin living as if they already have. You no longer speak from lack or longing, but from gratitude and possession. This inner alignment creates a magnetic pull between your unseen belief and its visible manifestation. The law of life is simple. Whatever you accept as true within yourself becomes true in your experience. Many grow weary because they confuse faith with waiting. Faith is not waiting for something to come. It is the awareness that it already is. When you truly believe, time loses its grip on you. You may not see it yet, but you know that in the unseen dimension it is finished. That knowing is what moves mountains, heals hearts, and changes destinies. The outer world always bends to the strength of inner conviction. So when doubt tries to whisper, "But what if it doesn't happen?" answer with a calm assurance, "It already has." Let that certainty be your resting place. Faith is not blind, it is visionary. It sees through the surface of things into the eternal substance behind them. To live in faith is to walk hand in hand with the unseen, trusting that what you hold in consciousness today will soon become what you hold in your hands tomorrow. Every struggle carries within it a sacred threshold, a point unseen by the natural eye, where the balance quietly shifts, and what once worked against you begins to move in your favor. This moment of breakthrough often comes disguised as exhaustion, discouragement, or even despair. It arrives at the very instant when you feel you have nothing left to give, when your faith feels stretched to its final thread. Yet, in that unseen realm, divine forces are already at work, rearranging circumstances to fulfill the vision you held within. Breakthrough rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with thunder or applause. It comes in stillness. It is born in those moments when you choose to believe one more time, to stand firm when everything in you wants to surrender. Every great turning point in life begins with that inner decision to persist in faith, to hold the image of victory even when defeat appears inevitable. The unseen begins to respond the moment you refuse to give up. There is a law in the spiritual dimension. Nothing truly believed goes unanswered. Every act of faith creates an invisible ripple that gathers momentum until it manifests. So when you pray, when you imagine, when you persist despite appearances, you are setting divine motion into play. Just because you can't see movement doesn't mean nothing is happening. In fact, the silence often means that everything is happening, just beyond the veil of sight. Think of a seed planted deep in the earth. Long before the first sprout breaks through the soil, an explosion of life occurs underground. Roots stretch downward unseen, drawing nourishment and strength. If the seed could see only darkness, it might think nothing is happening. Yet that hidden process is the most important part of growth. The same is true for your life. Your roots are expanding beneath the surface, preparing you to rise. When breakthrough draws near, resistance often intensifies. The pressure you feel is not the sign of defeat, but the final contraction before birth. Many give up just moments before the shift occurs because they mistake the final struggle for failure. But the darkness that surrounds you now is not an ending. It is the veil that separates you from your answered prayer. Once you push through it, what was once unseen becomes undeniable. Every struggle you've endured has been building the strength, clarity, and faith necessary to sustain your blessing. The pain was not wasted. It was part of the divine calibration preparing your life for alignment. When the invisible tipping point is reached, everything changes. Suddenly, easily, effortlessly. What took years to build appears overnight. No, that is the nature of breakthrough. It seems sudden, but it is the result of every unseen moment of belief, every prayer whispered in faith, and every tear sown in trust. Hold steady, your unseen is moving, and your breakthrough is closer than you think. There is an unshakable truth woven into the fabric of existence. What God begins, He always completes. No promise spoken into your spirit will ever return void. Even when you cannot see it, even when the path feels uncertain and the waiting seems endless, the fulfillment of that divine word is in motion. God is not a man that He should lie, nor does He abandon what He plants. Every promise carries its own appointed time. And when that time ripens, nothing on earth or in heaven can prevent its manifestation. The journey between promise and fulfillment is where most lose heart. It is the space where faith is tested and patience is perfected. You may wonder why it takes so long, why the vision burns within you yet remains unseen. But the delay is never a sign of denial. It is the process of preparation. God is aligning everything, not just circumstances, but you. He is shaping your heart, refining your character, and fortifying your faith so that when the promise appears, you can sustain it. When God plants a promise within you, it becomes a living seed. That seed contains everything needed for its own fulfillment: the design, the timing, and the power to grow. But it must be nurtured by your faith. You water it with your words, protect it with your thoughts, and feed it with your imagination. The outer world may contradict it, but the promise remains true. The unseen world is more real than what your eyes can perceive, and when you persist in faith, the invisible begins to crystallize into form. There comes a moment when faith matures into knowing, when you no longer question if it will happen, because you feel that it already has. That quiet certainty becomes the magnet that draws the unseen into visibility. You no longer chase the promise, you become it. This is the mystery of divine manifestation, that what you hold in consciousness as true must eventually express itself in your world. God works through your belief, through your inner acceptance, through your willingness to see beyond appearances. So when weariness comes, remember, you are not waiting for God to act. God is waiting for you to believe completely. The fulfillment is already written. The end is secure. The very longing you feel is the sign that the promise is alive within you and nearing its manifestation. What began as an inner whisper will one day stand before you in full form, undeniable and complete. Do not let temporary silence make you doubt eternal truth. The same power that began this journey within you will bring it to completion. Stay faithful, stay expectant, stay aligned. The unseen is gathering itself to reveal what has always been yours. God finishes what He starts, always. When your faith holds steady, the invisible becomes visible, and the promise that once felt distant becomes your living reality. Every waiting season, every unseen battle, and every silent night has been leading you to this very moment. Nothing has been wasted. not the pain, not the process, not the time. God has been working behind the curtain of your life, arranging the pieces, preparing the path, and strengthening your spirit. What once felt like delay was divine design. What once felt like loss was preparation for something greater. You are standing on the threshold of a divine unfolding. The shift is already happening, not someday, but now. The inner signals of change, the quiet stirrings in your heart, are not imagination, they are confirmation. The unseen is moving, the promise is maturing, and the miracle is forming. Keep believing, keep feeling, keep standing in faith. You don't have to see it to know it's done. Just rest in the certainty that God always finishes what He starts. The weariness you felt is turning into strength, the delay into divine timing, and the waiting into fulfillment. The same power that began this good work within you is bringing it to completion. Your breakthrough is not coming, it's already on its way to becoming visible. So lift your head, quiet your heart, and prepare to receive. What God is about to do in your life will be bigger, better, and more beautiful than you could ever imagine. The unseen has already shifted, and soon your world will reflect it. Thank you for watching. May this message awaken your faith, strengthen your spirit, and remind you that the promise still stands and your moment is near. Keep believing, because your miracle is already in motion. Money is energy in motion, an extension of the universe's very creative essence. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly while others constantly struggle? The secret lies in something beyond physical effort: vibrational frequency. When you understand that money is a projection of your mental and vibrational state, a world of possibilities opens up. Imagine being able to align yourself with this abundance energy and completely transform your financial reality. In this video, we'll explore how changing your relationship with money can unlock unexpected levels of prosperity, ready to discover the hidden power that attracts money. Our perception of scarcity is programmed. Money, like all matter, is vibrational energy, manipulable by those who understand the universal laws. However, these laws have been deliberately hidden by forces interested in keeping the masses trapped in cycles of lack. Our relationship with money is a mental prison, maintained by limiting beliefs and the vibrational manipulation of our consciousness. Money is not just a tool for exchange. It is a vibrational force that obeys universal laws most people are unaware of. The world around us is shaped by an invisible energy web, and money plays a central role in this system. Scarcity is not a natural condition, but an illusion, carefully imposed by systems that want to control how we perceive and experience abundance. The true key to attracting wealth lies in understanding that money is pure energy, and this energy responds directly to our vibrational frequency. When we think of money as something distant or unattainable, we create an energetic barrier that reinforces scarcity. This barrier is built by beliefs implanted early on, making us believe that money is hard to achieve or reserved for a privileged few. To break this cycle, you need to become the money itself. It's not about possessing it physically, but aligning your mind and emotions with the frequency of abundance. This requires abandoning thought patterns that keep you stuck in scarcity and starting to act and feel like someone who already lives in a state of financial abundance. The most powerful conspiracy against your prosperity is the idea of separation, the belief that you and money are distinct entities. This illusion is reinforced by systems that profit from your lack. But the truth is that you already have everything you need to attract wealth. The creative energy that moves the universe is within you, waiting to be awakened and directed. When you change your frequency, the universe has no choice but to reorganize itself to reflect your new reality. Transforming your relationship with money requires a profound reprogramming of the mind and personal vibration. The technique is based on reshaping reality through consciousness, dismantling imposed beliefs, and aligning with the energetic frequency of abundance. Here's how to do it. Recognize money as energy. Imagine money as a constantly flowing river. When you think of it as something limited or distant, it's like placing a barrier in that river, preventing it from reaching you. For example, instead of saying, "I never have enough money," replace it with, "Money is continuously flowing to me." Practice this change in small daily situations. When you make a payment, instead of thinking about the money leaving, visualize the energy cycle returning multiplied. Money responds to how you interact with it. Identify and destroy limiting beliefs. Take a notebook and write down all the phrases you've heard about money, especially the negative ones. Examples: money doesn't bring happiness. Rich people are greedy. Now for each phrase, write a new perspective. For instance, money doesn't bring happiness can transform into money, amplifies my happiness by providing freedom and security. Then read these new affirmations out loud every day. Additionally, think of real examples, billionaire philanthropists who use their wealth to impact the world. These stories help dismantle the negative view. Align your emotions with abundance. This technique is practical. Every day upon waking, dedicate 5 minutes to close your eyes and feel what your life would be like with abundant money. Imagine getting into your dream car, hearing the sound of the door closing and the engine starting. Visualize accessing your bank account and seeing high balances. The trick here is not just to visualize, but to feel gratitude and certainty that it's already real. The more vivid the emotion, the more powerful the attraction. Practice and deepen your visualization by using tools like a vision board. Gather images of things you want to attract. A house, vacations, a full bank account, and place them somewhere visible. Combine this with empowering phrases like, "I naturally attract prosperity." Another tip is to create mental routines. For example, before bed, visualize a perfect day as someone who is financially free. The more you repeat it, the more it becomes ingrained in your subconscious. Replace fear with confidence. Whenever you feel fear related to money, ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario? Often fear stems from unrealistic projections. Now reinforce it with action. Instead of worrying about bills, focus on how you can create value. For example, in a financial crunch, think about how your skills or talents can generate income. A person confident in the flow of money always finds opportunities, while fear paralyzes. Act as if you already have what you desire. This point is crucial. People with an abundance mindset invest in themselves. For instance, even if you're starting with little, invest part of what you earn in knowledge or tools that can increase your income. If you have a business, invest in marketing or improving your products. The more money you attract, the more committed you become to growing your business or personal life. Make lists of how to use the money you want to attract as if you already have it. The key is to think like someone prosperous. Wealthy people don't spend impulsively, but allocate their resources strategically. Let go of obsessive need. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care about money, but that you trust its flow. For example, if you feel anxious about spending, turn that moment into a gratitude ritual. I'm grateful to be able to pay for this and open space for more abundance. Additionally, avoid scarcity thoughts, like saving money out of fear. Instead, see money as a living resource that should circulate and return to you. Elevate your vibration. Money is attracted to high vibration. Ensure your daily routine includes moments to elevate your energy. This can be done through meditation, inspiring music, or even exercises that release dopamine. Now that you understand that money is energy shaped by your internal state, it's time to act. What separates those who live in abundance from those who are stuck in scarcity isn't talent or luck, but the willingness to take the first step to transform your vibration. Imagine what your life would be like if you truly believed you could attract everything you desire. Think of all the possibilities available to you now, just waiting for you to decide to change your mindset. No matter where you are today, what matters is to start. Start small, but start consistently. Align your thoughts, visualize your ideal life, and above all, take actions that reflect this new reality. Remember, no one else will do this for you. The universe responds to the energy of those who are willing to commit to themselves. Practicing these techniques may seem challenging at first, but that's how great changes begin. Transformation requires courage, and that courage is within you. By changing your vibration and actions, you begin to attract opportunities and paths that once seemed impossible. Don't underestimate the power of small daily steps. They are the bridge to the abundance you desire and deserve. Now that you know abundance begins within you, it's time to act. Don't wait for things to change on their own. Start today, applying the techniques you've learned here. Spend a few minutes each day aligning your vibration, visualizing your ideal life, and making decisions that reflect the abundance you want to attract. Abundance starts in the mind, grows in the heart, and manifests in reality. Everything you need to transform your relationship with money is already within you. It's not just about attracting wealth, but becoming the type of person who naturally lives in harmony with the energy of money. By changing your vibration and acting like someone who already lives in abundance, you connect with the natural flow of prosperity. Remember that money is merely a reflection of your internal state. It will come to those who respect it, understand its energy, and are willing to take action. Now look at the world with new eyes. Everything you desire is already available, waiting for you to reach out and grab it. Trust yourself, invest in your potential, and stay focused on your transformation. This is the moment to act. Abundance is just a step away from becoming your reality. If you need more content, insights, or techniques, you know where to find them. This is the beginning of your journey to a life of prosperity. Believe it and make it happen. If this content made sense to you, don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Help others see that they too have the power to transform their financial reality. And remember, this is just the beginning. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving content like this, which will help you grow, evolve, and achieve the life you deserve.
There comes a moment in every life when the outer world appears silent, unmoved, and unchanged. The mind may question, the senses may doubt, and reason may whisper that nothing is happening. Yet it is precisely in this stillness that the greatest movement has already taken place. Divine favor does not arrive with noise. It does not announce itself with thunder or spectacle. It begins quietly, invisibly, within. The moment you accept a new state of being, the moment you internally agree that the answer is already yours, the movement is complete. God has moved. Not in the sky, not in circumstances, but in you. Understand this truth. You do not wait for favor, you enter it. Favor is not something granted from outside. It is a state assumed within consciousness. When you occupy the feeling of being chosen, supported, and guided, life has no option but to mirror that assumption. What you consent to as true becomes law in your world. Many believe that effort persuades the divine. They struggle, plead, repeat words without feeling, hoping to be noticed. But divine law responds not to begging, but to being. When you live from the conviction that the door is already open, you stop knocking. And the moment you stop knocking, you realize you were never locked out. Divine favor is not earned through exhaustion. It flows naturally to the one who rests in the end. Rest is not inactivity, it is certainty. It is the deep inner knowing that the arrangement has been made, that unseen hands have already aligned people, places, and events in your favor. You may ask, if God has moved, why do I see no change?
because movement in consciousness always precedes movement in form. The seed is planted long before the harvest appears. No one digs up the soil every day to check if the seed is growing. They trust the process. In the same way, your assumption is working even when the surface looks unchanged. The moment you accept yourself as favored, supported, and guided, your reactions soften. Fear loosens its grip, urgency fades, and in that calm confidence, life begins to rearrange itself. Opportunities appear naturally, conversations shift unexpectedly, doors open without force. This is not coincidence, it is alignment. Do not seek signs to convince you. Signs follow belief, they do not create it. The outer world is a mirror, not a leader. When you change your inner position, the reflection must change. It cannot do otherwise. So today, choose to stand in the fulfilled state. Walk as one who knows the answer is already given. Speak inwardly from gratitude rather than need. Feel the relief of completion rather than the tension of waiting. Say within yourself, it is done, not because you see it, but because you know it. Divine favor is not coming. It has already been released. God has already moved. And now the world is simply catching up to what you have accepted as true. Rest in that knowing, remain faithful to the unseen, and watch as the invisible becomes undeniable. Nothing in your outer world ever changes until something first changes within you. What you experience as life is not happening to you, it is happening from you. Every condition, every circumstance, every repeated pattern began as an inner agreement, an unseen decision about what is true, possible, or inevitable. Long before events rearrange themselves, consciousness has already shifted. The world you see is a delayed reflection of what you've accepted internally. This is why effort applied only on the surface often feels exhausting and ineffective. You can change locations, relationships, routines, and strategies, yet if the inner state remains the same outcomes will reappear in new forms. Life is faithful, not random. It mirrors the state you consistently occupy. Inner movement is subtle. It does not require dramatic rituals or visible action. It happens the moment you stop identifying with lack and quietly assume fulfillment. The instant you accept a new inner position, I am supported, I am chosen, I am guided, a new sequence of events is set in motion. This movement is real even if the senses cannot yet confirm it. Consciousness moves first, matter follows. Most people wait for permission from the outer world before they change how they feel inside. They wait for proof, improvement, or validation. But this reverses the order of creation. The inner world is not a reaction, it is the cause. When you wait for circumstances to change before you change your awareness, you remain trapped in the same loop. True transformation begins when you dare to feel differently without external evidence. A shift in consciousness is not positive thinking, it is identification. It is the decision to live from the end rather than toward it. When you internally experience the relief, gratitude, and confidence of the wish fulfilled, you are no longer striving, you are expressing, and expression always precedes manifestation. This inner movement does not demand constant effort. Once the assumption is accepted, it works naturally like a law. You do not force the sun to rise or the seed to grow. You simply allow the process by not interfering with doubt, fear, or impatience. Doubt is not a failure, it is only a sign of divided attention. Gently return to the state you have chosen, and the movement continues. As consciousness shifts, reactions change. What once triggered fear now feels neutral. What once felt impossible now feels normal. These are not small signs, they are evidence that the inner rearrangement is complete. When your inner responses change, the outer world must reorganize itself to match the new state. This is why lasting change never comes from struggle. It comes from alignment. When you move inwardly into agreement with what you desire to experience, life has no resistance to offer. The path opens not because you forced it, but because you became the person for whom it is natural. Every outer transformation, success, peace, love, abundance, was first an inner movement. Change the inner position, and the outer world follows with precision. There is no exception to this law. Faith is not a struggle to believe something that feels distant or uncertain. True faith is quiet, natural, and inwardly assumed. It is the acceptance of an idea so completely that it no longer feels like hope, but like fact. The moment something is assumed with feeling, it begins to operate as reality, even before it becomes visible. An assumption is more powerful than effort. You do not assume by repeating words mechanically or convincing the mind through force. You assume by feeling from the position of already having. When the body relaxes, when the heart settles, and when the inner dialogue changes from wanting to knowing, the assumption is made. From that moment on, life rearranges itself to confirm what has been inwardly accepted. Most people think faith means waiting faithfully, enduring uncertainty, or believing despite fear. But faith, in its pure form, is certainty without evidence. It is the inner consent that says, "This is mine, not someday, but now." When you feel the naturalness of fulfillment, you are no longer asking for permission. You are living from decision. The reason assumptions harden into fact is because consciousness does not argue. It reflects. Whatever you repeatedly feel as true becomes the pattern through which experiences flow. If you assume struggle, life produces situations that justify struggle. If you assume ease, support appears without strain. The world does not test your assumptions, it simply confirms them. Feeling is the key that seals the assumption. Thought alone is weak, but thought combined with feeling is creative. A thought felt deeply enough becomes a state, and a state is an identity. Once something becomes part of who you are, it expresses itself effortlessly. You do not need to monitor it constantly. It works in the background, shaping outcomes, influencing decisions, and attracting corresponding conditions. Faith as assumption removes urgency. When something is assumed, there is no desperation. You do not chase what you already possess. This calmness is not passivity, it is authority. It is the inner posture of one who knows the arrangement is complete, and that posture speaks louder than any action. Doubt may still arise, but doubt does not undo an assumption unless you agree with it. Passing thoughts have no power unless they are felt and accepted. You can observe doubt without identifying with it. The assumption remains dominant when you return again and again to the feeling of certainty. Time delay does not mean failure. When you assume a state, you are not controlling the path, only the outcome. The how and when are not your responsibility. Life organizes itself through natural channels, often in ways the mind could not predict. Trust deepens when you realize that unseen movement is still movement. The outer world must conform. It has no choice. What you feel to be true consistently becomes visible. The fact appears not as something miraculous, but as something inevitable. And when it arrives, it often feels familiar, because you have already lived in it inwardly. Faith, then, is not blind belief. It is the courage to assume fulfillment before proof. And once assumed with feeling, it cannot remain invisible. It must harden into fact. What is called delay is often misunderstood. The human mind measures movement by what the senses can immediately detect, but creation does not operate on visible speed. Movement begins in silence, beyond observation, beyond clocks and calendars. Just because you cannot see progress does not mean progress is not happening. What appears delayed is not absent, it is already arranged. The moment an inner decision is made, the outcome is secured. From that instant, life begins assembling the necessary components, people, circumstances, timing, and pathways, into a coherent sequence. This orchestration is complex and precise, and much of it unfolds outside conscious awareness. Expecting immediate evidence is like expecting a seed to break the soil the moment it is planted. The work begins long before the emergence. Divine timing is not punishment, testing, or withholding. It is alignment. Everything must meet at the point where it can naturally express itself without force. If something arrived before the inner state was stable, it would not last. What feels like waiting is often preparation, not to change the desire, but to stabilize the consciousness that holds it. Impatience arises when attention is fixed on time rather than fulfillment. When the mind constantly checks the outer world for confirmation, it signals doubt, not faith. Yet even doubt does not stop the arrangement unless it becomes the dominant state. The deeper work continues regardless of temporary uncertainty. Life does not pause because you question, it only reflects what you finally accept as true. There are countless unseen adjustments taking place at once. Conversations you are not part of, decisions made by others, chance encounters, delays that protect you, redirections that refine the path. What seems like stagnation may actually be precision at work. The outcome is not late, it is exact. When you trust the arrangement, resistance dissolves. Trust is not blind optimism, it is understanding the law of sequence. Cause precedes effect, inner acceptance precedes outer expression. Once the cause is set, the effect is inevitable. Time is simply the interval required for reorganization to occur without contradiction. Many give up moments before alignment completes, mistaking silence for denial. Yet silence is often the sign that the structure is nearly finished. The loudest transformations happen quietly. The deeper the change, the less dramatic it appears, while forming, living from this understanding shifts your emotional posture. Anxiety softens into patience. Urgency transforms into calm expectation. You stop forcing outcomes and start cooperating with them. This cooperation allows events to unfold smoothly rather than through struggle. When the manifestation appears, it rarely feels rushed or chaotic. It arrives naturally, as though it could not have happened any other way. Looking back, the delays make sense. Each pause, each detour, each moment of uncertainty contributed to the perfect alignment. Divine timing is not something you wait for, it is something already in motion. The arrangement exists the moment you accept the end. What remains is the unfolding, and unfolding by its nature is invisible until it is complete. Everything you experience flows from where your awareness rests. Awareness is not passive observation, it is active selection. What you give your attention to, what you mentally agree with, and what you emotionally dwell in becomes the lens through which life organizes itself. Awareness is the creative power, quietly shaping reality from the inside out. Most people believe power exists outside of them, in circumstances, other people, opportunities, or chance. Yet nothing in the outer world has authority on its own. It only reflects the state of awareness you consistently occupy. When awareness is fixed on lack, life produces reasons to feel lacking. When awareness settles into fulfillment, life responds by providing the evidence. Acceptance is the turning point. You do not create by effort, you create by agreement. The moment you accept fulfillment as your inner position, the struggle ends. Acceptance is not pretending or forcing belief. It is the inner yes that feels calm, settled, and natural. When fulfillment feels normal rather than distant, the state is entered. This shift does not require you to control thoughts all day. Awareness is not about mental tension, it is about identity. You become aware from fulfillment rather than of desire. The inner conversation changes automatically. You stop asking when or how. Instead, you think, feel, and respond as someone for whom the desire is already resolved. Life immediately begins to rearrange itself because awareness is the organizing principle. Every system, psychological, emotional, and experiential, moves to match the dominant state. Opportunities appear without being chased. Insights arise spontaneously. Decisions feel intuitive rather than forced. These are not coincidences. They are adjustments responding to your new position. Resistance dissolves when awareness is aligned. Many obstacles exist only because attention keeps returning to them. When awareness shifts away from struggle and toward completion, those obstacles lose their function. They no longer have a state to support them, so they fall away naturally. This does not mean challenges never appear. It means challenges no longer define you. Awareness determines meaning. When you are aware of yourself as fulfilled, challenges become temporary movements rather than permanent blocks. You navigate them with ease because your identity is not threatened by them. The rearrangement often begins internally. Emotional reactions soften, fear loosens its grip, confidence emerges without effort. These inner changes are the earliest signs that life is already responding. The outer world follows, but always after the internal confirmation is complete. Awareness must be sustained, not strained. You do not check constantly to see if it is working. That implies separation. You simply return gently and consistently to the feeling of already being what you desire. This return strengthens the state until it becomes dominant. The world reflects your awareness so clearly that it feels inevitable. The outcome arrives not as something extraordinary, but as something appropriate. It matches you because you matched it first. Your awareness is the power. When you accept fulfillment, you give life a clear instruction, and life, always obedient to consciousness, rearranges itself accordingly. The greatest misunderstanding about change is the belief that evidence must come first. The senses are treated as judges of truth, and belief is postponed until proof appears. But this reverses the true order of creation. Signs do not lead belief, they follow it. Evidence is not the cause of faith, it is the result of it. The outer world is a mirror, not a source. It reflects what has already been accepted inwardly. When you look to circumstances for permission to believe, you place the effect before the cause. In doing so, you remain trapped in repetition, because the mirror can only show what is already assumed. It cannot introduce something new until belief has changed. Belief is not an intellectual agreement, it is an inner position. It is the quiet knowing that does not argue, justify, or demand reassurance. When belief is present, it feels natural, settled, and complete. There is no tension in true belief because there is no waiting for confirmation. The confirmation is already assumed. Many search for signs as motivation. They want a small improvement, a hint, a coincidence, something to prove that movement has begun. But signs given before belief would have no foundation to remain. Without belief, even positive signs are dismissed, minimized, or feared. The mind either doubts them or clings to them anxiously, both of which return attention to lack. When belief is established first, signs appear effortlessly. They do not need to be chased or interpreted. They emerge naturally as the world adjusts to the new inner state. Conversations shift, opportunities align, circumstances soften. These signs feel normal rather than miraculous because they match what is already accepted within. Looking for signs often signals divided attention. It suggests that belief is conditional, dependent on external validation. Yet the law responds only to what is unconditional. When belief no longer waits, the mirror has new instructions, and the reflection must change. The senses are delayed reporters. They describe what has already been set in motion, not what is currently being decided. By the time something is visible, it has already been agreed upon internally. This is why reacting emotionally to appearances is ineffective. You are responding to yesterday's assumptions. Faith remains steady even when appearances contradict it. This is not denial, it is understanding sequence. You do not argue with the mirror when you change your expression. You simply continue expressing differently until the reflection catches up. The need for signs fades as belief S strengthens. Certainty replaces curiosity. Peace replaces urgency. When belief is complete, you no longer scan the environment for reassurance. You move naturally, speak confidently, and decide intuitively. These behaviors are not strategies, they are expressions of identity. Eventually, the signs arrive in undeniable ways, not because you forced them, but because belief gave them permission. They appear at the right time, in the right form, and often through ordinary means. And when they do, they confirm what you already knew. Rest is not the absence of desire, it is the completion of it. When the end is truly accepted, striving dissolves naturally. There is nothing left to force, fix, or figure out. Peace arises not because circumstances have changed, but because the inner work has reached its conclusion. This peace is not manufactured. It is the evidence that the state has been entered. Most people mistake rest for inaction, but rest is an inner posture, not an outer pause. You may still act, plan, and move through life, yet without urgency or tension. Action taken from rest is effortless, guided, and precise. Action taken from lack is heavy and reactive. The difference is not what you do, but where you are doing it from. The moment you stop trying to make something happen, it begins to happen. This is not paradoxical, it is lawful. Striving implies separation. It affirms that what you want is not yet yours. Rest affirms possession, and life responds only to what is affirmed. Peace is the clearest sign that the assumption is complete. When the mind stops arguing with itself, when emotional volatility settles, and when the need for reassurance fades, the end has been accepted. You no longer revisit the desire with desperation. You remember it with calm certainty. Many continue to repeat techniques long after the state has been entered, not realizing that repeat. Ion from anxiety undoes the work. Rest knows when to stop. It trusts that what has been impressed will express. Just as the body rests after nourishment, consciousness rests after acceptance. Rest does not mean you will never think about the desire again. It means that when you do, it carries no charge. There is no longing, no impatience, no sense of distance. The desire feels near, familiar, even ordinary. This ordinariness is powerful. What feels natural manifests naturally. The world often tests this rest, not as punishment, but as reflection. Old conditions may linger temporarily. Delays may appear. Contradictory evidence may surface. These are not signs of failure. They are remnants of a former state. Rest allows them to pass without reaction. Reaction would re-enter the old identity. Non-reaction keeps you anchored in the new one. Rest is trust in sequence. You know that once the end is accepted, The middle takes care of itself. You are not responsible for arranging events, convincing people, or controlling outcomes. Your only responsibility is to remain faithful to the state you have entered. From rest comes clarity. Ideas arise without effort. Decisions feel obvious. You move at the right time instead of rushing. This is inspired action, born not of fear but of alignment. When fulfillment arrives, it rarely shocks you. It feels expected, even overdue. This is the signature of true rest. You recognize the manifestation as something you have already lived with inwardly. Peace is not the reward at the end of the journey. It is the sign that the journey inward is complete. When you rest in the end, the work is done and life moves to prove it. As we bring this message to a close, remember this above all else: nothing you are seeking is outside of you. Every shift in life begins with a shift in awareness. When you move inwardly, assume with feeling, trust, unseen arrangement, and rest in fulfillment, you activate a law that never fails. Life does not respond to effort, worry, or waiting. It responds to consciousness. What you have accepted as true within is already shaping what will appear without. The silence you may be experiencing is not denial, it is preparation. The peace you feel is not accidental, it is confirmation. Divine favor is not approaching from a distance, it has already been released the moment you agreed with the end. Do not chase signs. Do not question timing. Do not return to struggle. Remain faithful to the state you have chosen. Walk, think, and feel as one who knows the work is complete. Let patience replace urgency. Let trust replace fear, and let peace become your natural home. The outer world will catch up. It always does. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your presence. And thank you for allowing this truth to meet you where you are. Stay rooted in awareness, rest in fulfillment, and watch life unfold in your favor.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to speak to you about a principle that will revolutionize how you approach wealth, abundance, and prosperity. A principle so simple, so profound, yet so completely misunderstood that most people spend their entire lives chasing money without ever becoming rich. Here it is. You must be rich before the money comes, not after. Not once you finally get the money, before. You must be rich in consciousness before you can ever be rich in manifestation. You must feel wealthy before your bank account reflects wealth. You must assume abundance before abundance assumes form. This goes against everything you've been taught. You've been told that first you work hard, then you make money, and finally only then do you get to feel rich. But that is backwards. That is the thinking of those who live in the world of effects, who believe that circumstances create consciousness, who think that having creates being. I am here to tell you being creates having, consciousness creates circumstance. What you are in your inner world must appear in your outer world. And if you are not rich in consciousness, you will never be rich in manifestation, no matter how much money passes through your hands. Let me show you something that most never understand. There is a profound difference between having money and being rich. I have known many people with substantial bank accounts who were poor. Their consciousness was poverty. Their inner conversations were lack. Their feeling about themselves was limitation. They had money, yes, but they were not rich. They were poor people who happened to temporarily possess wealth. And I have known people with empty pockets who were rich. Their consciousness was abundance. Their inner world was overflow. Their feeling about themselves was prosperity. They had no money, but they were rich. They were wealthy people who hadn't yet seen their inner riches reflected in the outer world. And here's what's crucial. The person who is rich in consciousness without money will inevitably attract money, because the outer must conform to the inner. The world must reflect consciousness. But the person who has money without wealth consciousness will inevitably lose it, because money that doesn't match your consciousness cannot stay with you. This is why lottery winners lose their fortunes. This is why people who inherit wealth often squander it. This is why those who make money through luck or chance rarely keep it. They had money, but they were not rich. And the money left because it had no consciousness to anchor it. Now, what do I mean by wealth consciousness? What does it mean to be rich before money? It does not mean pretending you have money when you don't. It does not mean acting wealthy externally while feeling poor internally. It does not mean spending money you don't have to create an illusion of prosperity. Wealth consciousness is a state of being. It is how you feel about yourself in relation to the world. It is your inner conviction about provision, about worthiness, about flow. Let me describe this consciousness to you, so you recognize it when you touch it. A person with wealth consciousness feels provided for, not because their bank account is full, but because they know deep in their being that they are always taken care of. They expect the universe to provide. They assume that whatever they need will come, not as a hope, but as a knowing. A person with wealth consciousness feels worthy. They don't question whether they deserve good things. They don't sabotage blessings with guilt. They don't diminish themselves to make others comfortable. They simply know they are worthy of abundance, and they accept it naturally. The person with wealth consciousness feels free. Money is not a prison. Lack is not a dictator. They make decisions from desire, not from desperation. They choose based on what they want, not what they can afford. Even when their current circumstances are limited, their consciousness is expansive. A person with wealth consciousness feels abundant. They notice what they have, not what they lack. They see overflow, not scarcity. They experience richness in their relationships, their experiences, their inner life, regardless of their bank balance. This is the consciousness that creates wealth, not the consciousness that waits for wealth to create it. Here's the mistake most people make. They believe they'll feel wealthy once they have money. When I have $10,000 in the bank, then I'll feel secure. When I make 6 figures, then I'll feel abundant. When I'm debt-free, then I'll feel free. But this is impossible, because feeling is what creates, not what results from creation. You cannot feel secure once you have money. You must feel secure first, and then money comes to confirm your security. You cannot feel abundant once you make more. You must feel abundant now, and then more flows to match your abundance. You cannot feel free once you're debt-free. You must feel free in consciousness, and then your circumstances will reflect that freedom. The feeling must come first, always. Without exception, this is law. Scripture tells us, believe that you have received, and you will receive. Not receive, and then you'll believe. The belief, the feeling, the consciousness must come before the manifestation. Let me show you the consciousness of poverty so you can recognize when you're dwelling in it. A poor person, and I don't mean someone without money, I mean someone with poverty consciousness, thinks about money constantly. They obsess over it. They check their balance compulsively. They calculate every expense. They worry about it day and night. Why? Because they don't have it in consciousness. They're not rich internally, so they desperately try to create richness externally. A poor person feels restricted by money. Every decision is filtered through, can I afford this? Every desire is followed by, but that costs too much. They live in a cage built by numbers in a bank account. A poor person hoards. They grip tightly to every dollar. They're afraid to spend, afraid to give, afraid to circulate, because in their consciousness there is not enough. There will never be enough. They must hold on to what little they have. A poor person resents others' wealth. They see someone prosperous and feel diminished. They think that should be me, or they don't deserve that, or must be nice to have money. They make wealth wrong, abundance suspicious, prosperity something to envy rather than embody. A poor person believes money is hard to get. They assume you must struggle, sacrifice, suffer to earn. That wealth requires exhausting effort. That abundance comes only to the lucky few. This is poverty consciousness. And you can have this consciousness while sitting on $1 million. Because consciousness is not determined by your circumstances. Consciousness determines your circumstances. Now let me show you the consciousness of wealth. A rich person, someone who is rich in consciousness, whether or not money has manifested yet, thinks about money rarely. Not because they're irresponsible, but because they're not worried. Money is handled, dealt with, managed, but not obsessed over. It doesn't dominate their thoughts. Why? Because they have it in consciousness. They feel wealthy internally, so they don't need to constantly monitor external conditions. A rich person feels free with money. They make decisions based on desire, alignment, what feels right, not based solely on cost. Even when their current resources are limited, they think from abundance, not from lack. A rich person circulates. They give generously. They spend freely. They tip well. They share abundantly. Not recklessly, but from an inner knowing that what flows out will flow back in multiplied. They understand that circulation creates increase. A rich person celebrates others' wealth. They see someone prosperous and feel inspired. They think if they can have that, so can I. Or their abundance proves abundance is available. Or I'm happy for them. They make wealth good, abundance natural, prosperity something to assume, rather than envy. A rich person believes money is natural to receive. They don't struggle for it. They expect it. They assume it flows to them easily. They know that their consciousness of wealth attracts wealth effortlessly. This is wealth consciousness. And you can have this consciousness while your bank account is empty. Because consciousness creates reality. What you are within determines what appears without. So how do you cultivate wealth consciousness? How do you become rich before money? Not through pretending. Not through affirmations you don't believe. Not through acting wealthy when you feel poor, but through a shift in your inner world, a transformation of how you see yourself, how you relate to the world, how you move through your days. Let me give you specific practices. First, change your inner conversations about money. Most people have a continuous internal dialogue of lack. I can't afford that. I don't have enough. Money's so tight. I'm always broke. I wish I had more. Every one of these thoughts is an impression on your subconscious mind. Every one of these statements is an assumption that hardens into fact. You are creating poverty with your words, even if no one else hears them. Starting today, you must revise your inner speech. You must speak to yourself as a wealthy person speaks to themselves. Not I don't have enough, but I have everything I need and more is flowing to me. Not money's so tight, but money flows to me easily and naturally. Not I'm always broke, but I am abundantly provided for. Not I wish I had more, but I am grateful for the wealth I have and the wealth that's coming. Do you see the difference? One creates poverty, the other creates wealth. Your inner conversations are your most powerful creative tool. Use them to build wealth consciousness, not reinforce lack. Second, make decisions from abundance, not from scarcity. Every day you make countless small decisions, and each one is made from either abundance consciousness or lack consciousness. When you see something you'd like but don't buy it, because I can't afford it, you're deciding from lack. When you don't take an opportunity because what if it doesn't work out, and I lose money, you're deciding from lack. When you say no to an experience because I need to save, you're deciding from lack. I'm not telling you to be financially irresponsible. I'm telling you to check the consciousness behind your decisions. A person with wealth consciousness might choose not to buy something, but they'd think, I'm choosing to allocate my resources differently, or that doesn't align with my values, or I'm prioritizing something else right now. Not I can't afford it. That's poverty speaking. Start making decisions, even small ones, from a consciousness of abundance. Choose from desire, not from fear. Select from alignment, not from limitation. This shift in decision-making changes your entire consciousness. Third, give from your current resources. This is one of the most powerful practices for building wealth consciousness, and one of the most resisted. When you have little, your poverty consciousness says, I can't give. I barely have enough for myself. Once I have more, then I'll give. But this is backwards. Giving creates the consciousness of having. Giving affirms abundance. Giving tells your subconscious, I have more than enough. I have overflow. You don't give because you have excess. You give to create the consciousness of excess. Jesus said, give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. He didn't say receive and then you'll be able to give. The giving comes first. The giving creates the receiving. So starting today, give from whatever you have. If you have $100, give $5. If you have $20, give $2. If you have only $5, give 50 cents. The amount doesn't matter. The consciousness matters. When you give, even when it feels like you don't have enough, you're affirming to yourself and to God your own wonderful human imagination. I am abundant. I have more than enough. I am rich. And your subconscious, receiving this impression, begins to create conditions that match it. Fourth, notice what you already have. Poverty consciousness focuses on lack. Wealth consciousness focuses on abundance. Right now, look around your life. You have abundance everywhere, but you're not seeing it because you're trained to see lack. You have a place to live. You have food. You have clothing. You have relationships. You have abilities. You have opportunities. You have thoughts, imagination, consciousness itself. You have wealth that billions of people throughout history never possessed. Yet you feel poor because you're comparing yourself to those who have more, rather than appreciating what you actually possess. Gratitude for what you have creates the consciousness of abundance. And the consciousness of abundance attracts more to be abundant about. Start each day by really noticing what you already have. Not as a technique to get more, but as a genuine recognition of the wealth already present in your life. This shifts your consciousness from lack to abundance. And abundance consciousness creates abundant manifestations. Fifth, feel wealthy in your body. Consciousness is not just mental, it's felt in the body. A person with poverty consciousness walks hunched, hurried, tense. They carry stress in their shoulders. They move through the world as if they're late, behind, not enough. A person with wealth consciousness moves differently. They stand tall. They walk with ease. They're unhurried, unrushed, present. Their body language communicates, I have time, I have space, I have enough. Starting today, notice how you carry yourself. Are you moving like someone who's poor or someone who's rich? Walk like you're wealthy. Sit like you're abundant. Breathe like you're provided for. Not as pretending, but as claiming the consciousness of wealth in your very cells. Your body follows your consciousness, yes, but your consciousness can also follow your body. When you move like someone rich, you begin to feel rich. And when you feel rich, you become rich. Let me tell you what happens when you truly make this shift. When you stop waiting for money to make you feel wealthy, and instead choose to feel wealthy now, everything changes. You stop being desperate. Desperation repels money. Wealthy consciousness attracts it. You stop making fear-based decisions. You start making aligned decisions, and aligned decisions create wealth. You stop resenting others' success. You start celebrating it as proof that abundance is available. And what you celebrate, you attract. You stop gripping money tightly. You start letting it flow. And flow creates increase. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances. You start knowing you're the creator of circumstances. And creators create wealth. The shift from I'll be rich when I have money to I'm rich now, and money is on its way, is the shift that changes your entire financial reality. Not eventually. Not someday. Now in consciousness, and then inevitably in manifestation. Tonight before you sleep, you're going to assume wealth consciousness for the first time, regardless of your current financial situation. Close your eyes, forget your bank balance, forget your debt, forget your bills, forget everything your senses are telling you about lack, and feel wealthy. Not I'm going to be wealthy, not I want to be wealthy, not I'm becoming wealthy, but I am wealthy. Right now, in this moment, in consciousness, feel what it's like to be a person who is abundantly provided for. A person who expects good things, a person who trusts completely, a person who feels worthy of wealth, a person who knows without question that they are rich. Not the things wealth would buy, not the experiences wealth would provide, but the state of being wealthy, the consciousness of wealth, the identity of richness. Dwell there, rest there, fall asleep there. Impress this consciousness on your subconscious as you drift into sleep. Let the last thought you think be, I am rich. I am abundant. I am provided for. And tomorrow, wake up as that person. Don't check your bank account to see if you're rich. You already know you're rich in consciousness. And that's the only place wealth ever begins. Move through tomorrow from wealth consciousness. Speak from abundance. Decide from prosperity. Give from overflow. Notice from richness. Be rich before money. And watch how quickly money comes to confirm what you already are in consciousness. If you commit to this practice, if you truly cultivate wealth consciousness regardless of your circumstances, if you become rich in your inner world, before you see riches in your outer world, you will become wealthy. Not because you worked harder, not because you got lucky, not because circumstances changed, but because you changed in consciousness. And changed consciousness creates changed conditions. You cannot be rich in consciousness and remain poor in manifestation. It's impossible. Because the outer must reflect the inner. The world must conform to consciousness. So stop waiting for money to make you feel rich. Start feeling rich, and watch money rush to confirm what you already are. You are not poor. You've just been dwelling in poverty consciousness. You are rich. You've always been rich. You just need to claim it in consciousness before it can manifest in form. Be rich before money, and money will have no choice but to follow. Thank you, and good evening. This is Best of Lectures. I will see you in the next video.